Kiwala, gracias por seguir estos contenidos, pero te agradezco si le das suscribirte y a la manito, y si además quieres comentar, mucho mejor. Hello, good afternoon. Today is August the 1st. This is 8:20 p.m. and we're going to start this section with my friend Abel Carvajal, who is in Miami, and we're going to try to give an opinion of several events that go through these days and see if we can come up with something that might be interested for you. Hello, Abel. Go ahead.
Well, good evening now. Thank you so much for having me on your program. We always share on Wednesdays the program in Dural's voice, but this one's different. We have more time to delve into topics in depth, and we're doing it in English for the first time.
Yes. So we'll try to do our best. And well, to start, I will say that this week looks like a clown show. On the first hand, on Monday, Mr. Devon Archer, who used to be the pal, the associate, the brother of the hunter, and the guy showed up in Congress. Everybody was expecting that they will wipe him out like in any John le Carré movie, because before he went to Congress. But the guy went in closed doors and basically said under oath that he witnessed the big guy being involved in more than 22 different calls when they were doing business with several guys outside, some guys from China, some guys from Romania, some guys from Ukraine, and that's been very kind. And then some Democrats came out of the meeting stating that they met and talked only about the weather, because they went for more than 20 lunch in a fancy restaurant in Washington, D.C., and the guy said that all they talked was about the weather. Come on, man.
Well, the weather must have been all over the place all 20 of those days. I highly doubt that was the case. Washington, D.C., I haven't been, but I'm well aware that they've got the summer where it's really hot, and then in the winter it could snow and it gets crazy cold. But I highly doubt that there's 20 different weather possibilities in the city that they're talking about. And who goes to lunch to talk about the weather?
That's when you think they are trying to pull a leg on everybody, and they think we are stupid. So, and the thing is that they want to mock the whole planet, because they want to paint the big guy as a little sisters of the poor guy, instead of just a real fancy crook. The guy is more crooked than Michael Corleone. Michael Corleone had more panache doing his statecraft than this guy. That's what I think.
I agree 100%. I mean, it's very clear that this stuff is starting to come out to the light. It's been coming out to the light for some time, but the more that congressional Republicans investigate, the more that they're going to find all sorts of shady deals that Biden had done in the lead up to not just the 2020 election, but during his time as vice president. And it's very interesting that now Biden's DOJ is going after President Trump, accusing him of taking documents with him that he shouldn't have taken. That's what they're accusing him of. And it looks like the more that we see, that the Biden administration or even the Biden vice presidency was engaging in all sorts of corrupt deals with foreign countries.
Well, the thing is that it's amazing because the guy, they have found evidence that the guy is being a crooked politician since his days of when he was a senator, because they have found papers that he stole when he was a senator. And the only way to see those papers, those documents, those classified documents, is when he was in the skiff. And the only way to get the papers out of the skiff is get them in their genitals, to get out of the skiff without being, frisked by the guys of security. So he has tons of papers since when he was a senator. And then he got boxes of papers when he was the vice president. But the law of handling classified papers doesn't give a leeway to the vice president to have that. So the issue is that there's so many documents that he wasn't allowed to have, and they haven't said anything about that. And then Mr. Trump, who was lawfully authorized to have any type of papers with him, because once he takes it with him, he just declassify them. And that's it, because he doesn't have to explain. That's an administrative thing, and they have changed an administrative law of handling papers to a penal case and to a criminal case. And now today they're coming with 3 more indictments. And then you see, come on, this is like a clown show. I mean, who's going to show up? One of the best clown shows you guys had in America was Pee Wee Herman, but he died yesterday. So who's going to be the clown for this?
That's a good one. No, this is getting out of control, but it credit to congressional Republicans, because again, the more that they dig and the more that they find, the more that we can expose this to the American people ahead of next year's elections. And with Congress, you don't have to worry about the New York Times or big tech censoring you. You can release this out. There's no option but to cover this. This is what Congress is seeing. So they got to keep digging, keep finding, keep showing the American people what exactly it is that Biden is doing, and make it clear that he was undeserving of the first 4 years that he got, but he certainly doesn't deserve the next 4 that he's running for.
Well, that is interesting. But the other thing that you keep reading and the opinions of several pundits that I think are, they do their job is like Mr. Mark Levin. And he says that the Republican committee and the Republican hierarchy at the Congress, they have to grow a pair and start to impeach the guy, because there's enough evidence for that. And even though if they don't have the votes on the Senate, but the impeachment procedures will give him bigger leeway to do more investigations and to, get the police and the bureau and everybody involved in that, against the wall and said, you gotta give me all this information because this is an impeaching process. And he says that the leadership at the GOP are losing a very good time to do this investigation. And that's what many other pundits are complaining, that they should be doing that faster.
Yes.
And the other thing is that once they have the impeachment process taken in the Congress and do all what they have to do, because there's a ton of evidence, then they can take it to the Senate and they can put the Democrat senators against the wall and say, well, you're running for re-election and you're going to run for re-election and leave this guy off the hook. And I think that's a good political issue that they have.
So,
and
I'll let you finish, but I would like to mention the nuances of impeaching. That there's pros and cons to it.
Say again. Sorry.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to impeaching the president, politically speaking. The pro is what Mark Levin mentioned, which is you would display to the entire world what these investigations show. And you would display to not necessarily the court of the Senate, but the court of public opinion. That's
what really works, basically, because now the courts are not working. You see, the Department of Justice is a joke.
No. And you would take it to the 150 million Americans who are going to vote in next year's election, and you show them what exactly Joe Biden is doing. That was what the Democrats were strategizing back in 2019, that we're going to try to make Trump look bad.
Well, it worked for them.
It did and it didn't, because as a result of him being acquitted, his approval rating went up. So the risk that we run when we impeach Biden is if we put the country through the process of impeaching a president, there is consequences and it happened with Trump and it happened with Clinton. With Clinton, he was up against the wall. With Clinton, you can't tell me that he didn't commit perjury at all, but he was acquitted and his approval ratings went up as a result. And with Trump, it was the same story. His approval ratings rose. But
that was obstruction of justice, but now it's bribery. The felony is different. It's bribery, and they have the proofs, and they have all the shell companies and all that.
So that's, what I just mentioned was the con. It could politically backfire, but it could benefit. So the thing that leadership needs to analyze is, do we gain from impeaching him? And it's pretty clear the answer is yes, because you're going out there and you're showing the world what just happened. That is the benefit to it. And because we're so close to an election, you could now say, whenever Democrats say, well, Trump was impeached, you could say Biden was impeached. And look at what they were both impeached for. Trump's impeachment was a sham. Democrats knew it was a sham from the very beginning. Republicans are impeaching Biden over something that is pretty legitimate and pretty fair, or if they did choose to impeach, which is bribery. So, you get
bribery,
to
level and obstruction of justice.
Yes, and you would get to level the playing field going into 24, at least with those scandals. And you never know what else you uncover when you're looking. You don't know what else you're going to find when you're doing these investigations. You could find a big smoking gun. And of course, I'm speculating here, but if you dig deep enough, you might find it. Something that is just absurd, and that the American people would say, this is way too much. We cannot have a president like this.
Well, one of the other things that we'll see how it goes, because then you go to Europe, and the things are developing very nasty so far for the people that think that communism is bad. And then you see what is happening in Spain. They just had an election, and that was another joke, because for one side you had the socialists getting in pairs with the communists, and they're playing like a tandem team in a bicycle, and then on the other hand you have the conservatives, and you have the big party hitting on the head to the second party, and now they're not getting anywhere, and it seems like the little guy is the only help they can get, and probably this guy Núñez Feijóo will go to the toilet, and that is very bad for the conservative move in Spain and the whole Hispanic America. That's
a very good point. No, Núñez Feijóo made a miscalculation in thinking that he could govern alone. that he would hand the socialists such a catastrophic defeat that they would turn against Sanchez and that they would take him out or something, and that he would benefit from the internal chaos in the Socialist Party, which would lead him to form a government with their abstention. That's part of the thinking. The other thinking is, and I agree with this thinking of his, which is the party that wins the most seats should get to govern. And the
Yeah,
People's Party won.
but that's not the law.
No, it's not.
The
The
parliamentary Congress is the majority of seats. It's not who wins.
Yes. And that's fine. But in many parliamentary systems like Canada, for instance, the prime minister, the night of the election, when they're determining who's won the most seats, the prime minister is whoever wins the most seats. That is the person that goes to Ottawa and gets sworn in. And in Spain, never has the second place party after an election formed the government. That has never happened. The only time in which the opposition party, the second place party, formed government was when there was the vote of no confidence on Rajoy. The problem with the Spanish right is that the Partido Popular, the People's Party, is all over the place. They don't have strong leadership. Their leadership is scattered. Casado was a weak leader. Rajoy governed and he won 3 elections, but he was corrupt. I mean, there was the Gürtel case, which forced him out of office. And so there's a fraction on the right in Spain, and there's people who are now moving to vote for Vox. And one of the biggest mistakes that people made in this election on the Spanish right was they didn't vote for Vox because they thought they voted tactically. And that cost them a few seats here and there, which at the end of the day could have made the difference between the two right of center parties governing in Spain, all because people who would have voted for Vox voted for PP to help them win a couple of seats, and that it didn't help them.
Well, the thing is, like Mr. Abascal said, that Mr. Feijóo was selling the bear's skin without killing the bear. And that was his mistake. And the other thing is that they play the fear card. And they say that Vox was too right-wing, was the closest thing to be Nazis or Mussolini's fascist, and all that nonsense, thinking that the socialists will vote on him. And the real thing is that the socialists concentrated 1 million votes more on the Socialist Party, and nobody went from the left to the right. So he was a regular jerk, because instead of getting, healthy and pumping with his teammate in the tandem bicycle, they throw them away, and now he is crying like a stupid jerk because he's not going to be the president. So the only guy who can save the day is the king, because what it's coming out of the left, it's a
Frankenstein government.
Yeah, it's a Frankenstein government with the terrorism from ETA and the separatists from Catalonia. And those people, they just want to destroy the Spain state. And it's the only chance Sanchez has. And that will be the destruction of Spain has.
The breakup of the country.
Kingdom. Yeah, the way the government is and the constitution. And Mr. Feijóo is really doing a bad service for the conservatives in the kingdom. That's what I think.
I view it as when you say the king needs to step in, I think the only way that the king could step in, and the right thing to do is to hold another election. That is the only outcome that I see that would not fix the situation, because we might end up in the same situation, but you can come to the conclusion that maybe in another election you have a more decisive result, or you'll have more turnout. Because remember, this past election was held in the middle of summer while people were on vacation during the hottest days. If you hold another election, preferably during the winter, where people
everybody will be home first. And you won't have to use 2.5 million mail votes. Oh,
that could affect
kicker. And
the outcome.
that's one of the big things that happen now. So the best solution that I see for Spain is go to a second election, because the king breaks the game. Because if he allowed Sanchez to go ahead with what he wants, it means the destruction of the constitution and destruction of the monarchy. And then he has to go somewhere and drive Uber, because he will have to leave the Zarzuela Palace and everything.
He'll end up like his great grandfather.
Yeah.
Sent away. But
yeah, in Portugal.
Spain's got to reform its electoral system, because we've had since 2015, we've had 7 years and we've had 5 elections in 7 years. And it looks like we're going to go for 6 and 7 years. Whenever the next one is. And I don't see a very strong government being formed here by either side. Spain's got to reform to some level of mixed member proportional representation. The current system of allotting seats to provinces and having votes go that way, I don't think that's particularly constructive to Spanish democracy. What they should do is they should have proportional representation based off the communities, all 17 autonomous communities, and then the 2 independent cities, and then have as well as single member districts that are created in the individual communities. So you'll have, Galicia's 7th district or Galicia's 8th district in the Congress, and then you have 2 votes like they do in Germany, like they do in Mexico, where you have 1 party for your local representative and then 1 vote for your county or regional representative, in which these people would be elected on a proportional basis. So if Vox gets 26% of the vote in Galicia, they get 26% of the seats, because right now the proportions don't necessarily match.
They use the Hunt law.
Right.
It's a way to give the votes to a proportionate, but it's barely a trick. And the other thing that I've seen worried that is happening in Europe is that the globalists are playing a very hard card with the community of letters, and also with the problem of how they're handling the education to the kids. They're sexualizing the kids. And that is very terrible, because they want to play that card all over the world, and they have the UN that is being handled by the Chinese. And I think it's very terrible. And the other thing is that Europe, instead of being a serious place, is run by communists, and all they do is, pat in the back of the communists from Latin America. Look what is happening in Colombia, and nobody's saying nothing. The son of the president gets charged by the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, because the guy was laundering money from drug cartels to pay for the campaign of his father in the last election. And even worse, the guy did that, but not only the guy handled money from the drug cartels for the campaign, he didn't give it to the campaign. He took it for himself. So he was a crook. He stole the money to buy a Chevy Tahoe and a house. Come on. And then the guy has the gall to throw away his wife. And that's when she threw him away under the bus, because she said, you're going with another mistress and you're going to leave me alone? Well, and then she threw him off the bus, and now they're both pressing charges on them. But the press in Europe and everywhere else is not saying nothing about this guy, Petro, who is just a terrorist. He's a terrorist who they elected by part of the trap from Indra. There's the same people who handled the vote in Spain. And then you see come on, what's happening here? Huh? It's only the bad guys are winning the game? That's terrible, I think.
Well, wasn't it his wife or somebody in Colombia whose wife is getting massages?
Oh, that's the president's wife.
Okay.
That's another ball game. So the president's wife goes to with a special friend to get a massage with some oil made of cannabis. And then she says that not only is good with the oil, but smoking the pot. And that's the wife of the president of that country. But that's not that's a personal problem. But the son is handling money from a cartel that his father authorized, because otherwise the kingpins wouldn't give money to a regular dude unless they talking to the big guy. So that's the problem. But the worst thing is the press is hushed. They shut up, and that is really terrible. Even the U.S. press and in Latin America and Europe, everybody's saying that the guy has problems with illicit enrichment and money laundering, but they don't say that it's money laundering coming from drug-related activities. And that's what you see is so terrible.
And it's a shame because, the drugs that come out of Colombia affect communities across the world. They affect communities in the U.S., communities in Europe, communities all over
Mexico,
the world,
and
all over Latin America,
and all over the place. But the thing is that the great advance that Mr. Petro is giving to that country is stealing property. That is terrible. They taking away the farms from regular owners, and they're coming with this socialist agenda, and that is terrible, because I think one of the oldest democracies in the American continent was Colombia, and one of the biggest allies of the U.S. government is Colombia. They even have a base for the Southcom. They have like 4 bases in Colombia, and that's terrible that the U.S. administration is not doing their duties. I mean, the only people doing their duties are the Southcom, but you don't see the leadership at the State Department handling the Colombian problem as they should be doing. And that's what really worries me, because they're right besides only 30 kilometers from my house. And that is really terrible.
No, you gotta soon it won't matter anymore. They might as well have the same country, because you'll have the same systems of governance between the two. Colombia's heading down a very, very bad path with Petro.
Yeah,
but it's been a year now since he was sworn in. Almost a year.
The only good thing is that the Congress stopped him right in his tracks, because even when they started with him, they once he came with this communist agenda, the Congress is trying to stop the guy, and you see the Attorney General stopping the guy. But still, there's so much money in the drug process and in the business, and especially because the people who's supposed to put a nail in the head of the guy, they're not doing their job, and that is the leadership of the European Union and the Department of State. And that's what really worries me, because they're giving the same treatment to the crooks in my country. Last week, they took away one of the crookedest guy, the guy who handled the money from the Social Security Service, that was a general, and they took him away from the OFAC list. And that's terrible, because that guy is responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths because the medicines didn't get here in Venezuela. A dude by the name Rotondar. And that is, awful that we keep seeing that the policies of the State Department, I think, is not handling well the problem with Venezuela.
What's, that's the problem with our current State Department and our current administration. They don't see Latin America as what it is. It's the ultimate doorstep in America. And you got to imagine that China and Russia have their eyes on turning these countries against us. And that would be really bad. for the United States.
And Iran. And that's even worse. Now you can see Shiites going out in Caracas and celebrating one of these dates for the Shiite Muslims. And that is terrible because that never happened here. And that problem to, allowing the Shiites, the Iranians, to have a foothold in America and allowing Venezuela to be that is terrible. Especially when you see that they are planning to keep on with the nuclear program in Iran, and you see the authorities in Israel saying that you can't allow Iran to have nuclear weapons, and that's a terrible choice that I think Mr. Blinken is doing. But since he got paid by the University of Pennsylvania from the Chinese government, he doesn't care. But that's terrible for the whole continent, and that's what I think.
You've also got problems in Ecuador. You've got problems in Peru. Thankfully, in Chile, the left has been stopped in its tracks. It looks like Boric is a lame duck over there. But the left is ascendant all over Latin America, and the left in Latin America is a left that is anti-American. It is a left that is pro-BRICS. That's why Brazil's part of the founding bloc. But there's some hope that Latin America can turn around. There's elections in Argentina later this year. There's a very strong chance that the Kirchnerites are going to get booted from power, and that Milei could very well become the next president of Argentina.
Well, the good thing about that is that he's coming with a very Adam Smith program. The guy is a liberal, is a pro-market, and it's a guy who wants his country to be great, and he's doing this part, and he's doing the cultural fight. And I see his interviews, and the guy has a path and a plan for like 30 years. And, well, we hope it goes well with Argentina, because being Argentina an economical powerhouse that can start turning the tables, because it's not only Uruguay and Paraguay, they are too small. But if you have Argentina turning the tables, and the right in Chile, where Boric got squashed twice, and then now you have Katz that he raised to be a statesman, because when he ran against Boric, he was just a right fascist, but now he's a leader, and they have a leader, and that's a good thing for Chile. Here in Venezuela, we're coming for a primaries in the opposition, but we see that they just want to boycott that, because now we have a leader. This lady, Mrs. Machado, she's the one who basically is running the show. I mean, everybody would like her to represent them, to represent us. But the thing is that the rest of the opposition, they are losing the marmalade. They're losing the jelly where they get the money. And once we have a single leader, all those guys in all those different parties, they lose the chance to go and ask for money outside. And that's what they don't want. And they want to boycott the primary. So what we hope is that this lady really does her work, gets elected on the primary on October, and then we can build a path forward to see if she can get a better relationship with the GOP. Because with the Democrats, I know that they are in cahoots with this socialist government, and that is really sad for us.
Hopefully, yeah, that would be great. Maria Corina.
Yes. Well, my friend Abel, thanks for your time, and we hope to the audience that you enjoy this program. I hope you give us your comments, and also if you can follow us, subscribe, put the finger up, or down or whatever, or give us a comment. We will appreciate it. So have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow at Doral Boys, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bollito de corazón a 2.500 el paquete, hallacas de pollo a 2.500 cada una. A la orden los bollitos de mazorca a 2.500 el paquete, bollito de corazón a 2.500 el paquete.